Aloha, how are we? I could not be more honored and delighted to be with you all here today. And I'm even more delighted with travel woes, not that they were woes, but that I got to experience that last conversation. When you talk about the global impact of our native Hawaiian lands, that is a message we need to get out there. That is a message we need to talk more about. Your incredible HSTA president does an excellent job among his colleagues across the country of talking about Native culture, Native history, and the importance of the honor that is due. So it was such an incredible moment to get to hear that important debate and to recognize that names do matter. But the names are just a name. It's the history that those names reflect. So I am honored to be here today. I'm going to talk about a couple of things. But first of all, I really want to send heart to our incredible educators of Maui. And I send heart on behalf of the 3 million educators of the National Education Association, the nation's largest labor union. And I also send heart on the staff, because the staff at the national level did not rest, whether it was making sure we were getting federal support, raising environmental issues, making sure there were temporary housing, making sure there was the way that we could restore some sense of normalcy for students and educators by getting schools open again, talking about the environmental impact, and recognizing the importance of restoring tourism for the local economy. It is truly an honor to get to be before all of you and recognize the incredible spirit, faith, and passion that you have brought to your island, but also what that symbolizes for students nationwide. So I wanted to honor that. I had the opportunity to staff President Pringle as she met with Dr. Jill Biden, who is an NEA member, just like all of you. And this was shortly after her time on the ground in Hawaii, on Maui. And Dr. Biden spoke so passionately about the interaction she had. And what I loved most is she said, this isn't a one-off. I will continue my relationship with those teachers, with those educators, because I gave them my word. Now, this may seem like we are just talking about Maui. This may seem like we are just talking about the importance of Native culture, the importance of history. But I am here to tell you today that all of this is tied up in why elections matter. Why elections matter. All right, y'all are leaders. We're all weird because we give up our weekends to do this important union work, right? Like, we know that, right? So therefore, you all go back to your buildings and your campuses with an extra responsibility, because your colleagues need to know about the weird things that happen when you go off on a Saturday to meet with your colleagues across the state. And what we know is that how many of you can put up your hand and say that you have been asked by a colleague, why do we do politics in the union? Can't we just teach? Put them up high. I know they're out there. Oh, look at this. Thank you all. I appreciate the brave moment there. You all, as union leaders, need to be able to answer that question. You need to be able to answer that question because right now, nationwide, while you are here and have a specific set of issues that you are dealing with in terms of investment and support for your schools, nationwide, what we are seeing is politicians who know nothing about teaching and learning in the classroom restricting what books you use with your students. Boo. Oh, okay. We got afternoon energy here. All right, I'll do it again. Ready? Politicians who know nothing about teaching and learning restricting the books that teachers are using with their students. Okay. Good job. We're going to see if you can keep on this. Politicians who know nothing about teaching and learning, diverting precious resources to private schools in the form of vouchers. Politicians who know nothing about teaching and learning, reducing certification requirements to make sure that they just get people in the classroom and it doesn't matter because anyone can teach. Politicians who do not understand the value of our education support professionals and the roles that they play in our schools and therefore only really want to talk about teachers and not all those other adults who make our schools successful for all of our students. Every time we work on an election, it is to make sure that we are electing people who matter, who understand the value of our public education system as a cornerstone of our democracy. I'm going to tell you the big secret. You ready? You had to wait till this time to find out that I would tell you what time, but I don't know what time zone I'm in. You had to wait until this time to hear the big secret. And the big secret is the same people who are attacking our labor movement are the same people who are attacking voting rights, are the same people who are the anti-tax movement, are the same people who are threatening and have threatened women's bodily autonomy, are the same people out to privatize our public education system. Well, I mean, that's not good. So if we do not stand up for the power of our public education system in this country, what will be left? And you as leaders in HSTA, in the union, you are looked to as leaders and you need to be able to go back to your campuses and say, this is why we're giving money to the NEA Fund for Children or Public Education. This is why we are working on elections. Now, did you all know there's a presidential election this year? Did you read something? Oh yeah, it's like some things in the newspaper, social media, lots of things. The NEA has enthusiastically, I'm going to say it again, enthusiastically endorsed President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris for a second term. Enthusiastically. Okay, I'm loving the energy. Let's just be honest. I know y'all. There's some of you who are like, right? I spent a lot of time with you, with our members across the country. I know. I have heard it. And let me tell you, we're going to spend a couple of minutes talking about why this administration is the most pro-labor, pro-public education administration we have ever had in the history of the United States. How many people in this room have benefited from the public service loan forgiveness? Put those hands up, right? Look around, put those hands up, right? Look around at your colleagues in the room. How many are you currently in the system waiting to get all your payments in? In the system, all right, we got more hands up. What you need to say is thanks Joe Biden, thanks Kamala Harris. If you're sitting here going, what have they done for me? What is different? What have they actually accomplished? Every single one of you and your colleagues back in the campuses have benefited from this administration purely through public service loan forgiveness. But that's not all. And you know what? I really can't tell this story as well as the president of the NEA, Becky Pringle. And so I brought along a video that I want to show to you all so that you can start to see some of the benefits of this administration. Can we play that first video?
In 2024, educators are proud to support Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for re-election because together, we've delivered historic results for our students and public schools. We've seen how access to healthy meals for 5 million new students means more young learners are ready for class, and how significant investments in modernizing school buildings and clean energy means a healthier environment for everyone. President Biden puts students first by supporting their civil rights, expanding access to mental health services, and by signing the most comprehensive gun violence prevention legislation in 30 years, while understanding that more needs to be done to make our schools safer. Under President Biden, educators are also seeing a boost to their finances. We've seen pay increases and significant student loan forgiveness. Joe Biden is the most pro-public education and pro-union president in modern history. He listens to educators and gives them a seat at the table.
So that video, if you go to NEA.org/Biden, is available for you to share with your colleagues in the buildings, to share with your communities. But let's really break down a couple of these. So not only do we have public school forgiveness, but we think about how much the environment of Hawaii is so central to the Native history and to the work that goes on here. We have an administration that put forth money and resources for electric school buses and anti-privatization language in there to make sure that in an attempt to go electric, we are not going to privatize our transportation services. We also had that expansion of broadband access, recognizing that rural areas, as well as some urban areas, still have affordability issues around broadband access. If COVID taught us something, it was that accessibility issue. Prior to this administration, we could not have a serious conversation around the mental health needs of both our students and, to be honest, our educators. We have more money going out there right now than we have professionals willing to enter our classrooms and our buildings as mental health professionals. So we need to build that. And they want to partner with us. And for the very first time in the history of the United States in the Department of Labor, The apprenticeship work at the Department of Labor has been expanded to include teachers. And we have, for the very first time, a classroom educator who is serving on the national board overseeing apprenticeships in this country. We know when educators are in decision-making roles, better decisions are made, right? You all know this, right? That's why NEA works so hard in its See Educators Run program to help train our members to run for public office. Because we know when educators are in that decision-making seat, better outcomes for students happen. Now, one could say, I just flew to visit you all here, to be in your home, to talk about the presidential election, and you're like, Hawaii's voted for a Democrat in the presidential election, every presidential election in history. So you're like, well, what does this matter? Why do we of HSTA need to be involved in the presidential election? Do y'all remember 2016? Right? If you don't, you're lucky, and also I want whatever you have. The reality was, in 2016, Donald Trump was elected because people stayed home. People weren't excited about either of the choices, so they just stayed home. I mean, how bad could it be? I don't really like either of them. I'm not going to get up there. And then he wins. And in the first couple of days, he institutes a ban on Muslims entering our country. He limits and builds his wall and immediately makes life so much worse for so many Americans than makes it better. But we had a pandemic in the meantime, and everybody seems to have forgotten what the real consequences were of his leadership. But he was 100% elected in 2016 because people stayed home. You all know people in other states. You all know educators. We're going to have major volunteer opportunities to do things online, to reach out, to make sure your friends and colleagues have a plan to vote. Because again, remember, those forces are making it harder to vote than ever, which means it's going to take each one of us, all the phone calls, all the text messages. We have one of the developments in the world is something we call relational organizing tools. You might know them as Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. You know those? The official title is those are relational organizing tools. Well, NEA now has what we call our Ed Activist app. And if you download that Ed Activist app, which you can get to, you can either search for it on your little stores. I don't know what the Galaxy Samsung store is called, the Google store, I don't know what it is, but the Apple store, the App Store, you can search up Ed Activist, or you could just go to the Biden website that we showed before, and it'll lead you to downloading that. That's gonna give you things to share on your social media about this election, about this administration, about the wins we've had. Because your friends and family are gonna believe you more than they're gonna believe me. They've never met me, at least not yet. But they will believe what you say. So we need everybody sharing this good news, sharing these wins from the Biden-Harris administration, but most especially sharing that at the end of the day, we need every single person to go out to vote. Because anybody who stays home is letting somebody else tell our story. And you all work with students who you teach to have voice, to stand up for themselves, and most especially, tell their own story. So we know at the end of the day, we have to model that behavior. And we have to talk about this, and we have to be excited about this. Because all of you, and again, I know you're out there who did she's here to talk about the presidential election. You are the leaders of your campuses. You are the one to talk about why collective action of the union matters. Why we do politics, because it's about the policy and what happens in our classrooms and campuses and communities. So we need you all to be fired up. We need you to please make a monthly recurring cup of coffee into the NEA Fund for Children in Public Education. Money of that comes back to you. Senator Hirono is up this year, and so we obviously will be investing to make sure she comes back. She is a huge champion and actually talks about you all a lot. She really does. So I need to know, HSTA, that you're going to be fired up when you go back home today to be starting talking about this election and why we need to make sure that President Biden and Vice President Harris stay in those positions for another 4 years. Can I count on you all? Wow. I feel like we went from to like, come on, HSTA, I know you can do better than that. Can I count on all of you to be fired up and doing everything you can to make sure we're sending the Biden-Harris team back to the White House for another 4 years? Much better. Much better. Much better. All right. I know it's like, guys, you got through the MBIs. You almost cheered louder for finishing MBIs than you did about sending this administration back. Now, what we know is that you all have friends everywhere. You do. We talked a little bit about the friends you had at the beginning, Maui. And I brought one more video for you all of somebody who is sorry they could not join us here today. But they wanted to share a very special video for you all to remind you why you matter. So if we could send up that second video, please.
If there is something strong enough to help us carry the burden of grief forward, something able to break its gravitational pull, it's love. The love of the friends and family who remind us that joy can be found even in sorrow. The love of a community that lifts us up when we're weak, that carries us on. I saw that love when I spoke with teachers on Maui last year in the days after the fire. And I've seen it as I've joined HSTA board meetings in the months since. It's the way you held on to one another, the way that even amid personal devastation, you were still looking for a way forward for your students. We chose this path out of love for what we do and who we teach. To answer this call of service is, in itself, an act of hope, because this isn't just a job, it's a calling. And all of you were called to this profession for a reason, because you never give up on the families you serve. You continue to believe that a better world is possible, and you make that world real, one student at a time. All of you make me proud to be a member of the NEA. We're a family of colleagues, and we hold on to one another. On Monday, as you step back into your classrooms, I hope that you remember that right now, someone out there is standing a little taller because you helped her find the confidence she needed. Someone is working a little harder because you pushed him to try. Someone is braver because you helped her find her courage. Thank you.
Elections matter. It is not lost on any of us that that person did not speak as the First Lady of the United States, but rather as a colleague, as a teacher, and as a fellow NEA member. So let us remember, at the end of the day, elections do matter. They do matter. And it is incumbent on all of us to help each other in the collective power of the union, the 3 million strong members of the National Education Association, the largest labor union in this country, to make sure that we are speaking up not only for ourselves, for each other, but for our students and their future. So with that, HSTA, mahalo, thank you for having me here. I am delighted to have been joining you, and thank you for what you do.